Hello and welcome to this short webinar on how to help deal with problem behaviors in the classroom. My name is Jeffrey Moore. I am a Master's of Arts in Teaching for Elementary Education student at NC State. I'm also going for an add-on licensure in Emotional and Behavioral Disorders for Special Ed. I chose the text How to Reach and Teach Children with Challenging Behaviors, written by K.L. Oaten and Jody L. Tuttle, who are both former special ed teachers who helped work with a lot of students with challenging behaviors. They wrote this text for teachers to provide them with a lot of practical skills and strategies that they can use in the classroom. And this is very good because that means everything in this book is usable and is presented in a way that a teacher can just read it through and go, all right, I can do this right now. So it's all ready to use, simple to understand, and well worth the effort of reading and the time. The central premise is that you have to be proactive. That means that don't wait till the problem behavior happens. Prevent it from happening in the first place. Start off the beginning of your year with behavior management as a class-wide system. Maybe it's a reward system. If you do well a certain number of days in a row, you get a reward, things like that. If you do it from the start, you can prevent problem behaviors from happening and taking away from your instructional time. So, one of the first main ideas of this text is that social skills instruction is one of your most important tools. This can be embedded within your regular instruction, doesn't have to be its own lesson. But oftentimes the reason a child is acting out is they lack those different strategies and skills to deal with frustration, anxiety, anger, any of these things, including sadness, because that is something that happens. So if you can provide them with the skills and strategy to help them cope with these in an effective manner, you can prevent them from ending up acting out as a result of them. Next up, we have picking your battles. I cannot stress this enough, and even the text talks about it a lot. Do not engage in power struggles. Everyone loses in a power struggle. It doesn't matter if you get the student to do what you want in the end. You still lost because they no longer will respect you, and they know I can goad you into a fight, so I don't have to listen to you. I can just mess with you now. So, to prevent this, ask yourself, so what? So what if this behavior continues? Will it negatively affect them? And if it will negatively affect them in their social well-being, physical well-being, emotional well-being, or academic success, it's a behavior worth changing. However, if it doesn't, wait. Because if you focus on those behaviors that don't really need to change right now, you can have those power struggles, or you can get the kid feeling defensive, and once they're in that state, there's very little you can do to earn back your ability to help them. Using visual prompts and checklists. A lot of teachers use these. However, the way that the authors talk about it is not just, this is the schedule for today, or here's a checklist to do the assignment. These are things like, when I'm going to this class at this time, these are the things I need, and it's a picture showing them all the things so that it reminds them this is what I'm going to need. It also helps remind them that how they need to be thinking going into the next lesson. It can also be, instead of having a list of classroom rules, you have pictures of the appropriate behavior and the inappropriate behavior. This will reinforce what the rules are, and it will also prompt them to think, am I showing the appropriate or am I showing the inappropriate behavior? Next up, everything comes back to effective and engaging instruction. This means you need to provide choices to students. Simply giving them choices can reduce those behaviors. You have to remember that students often need to feel a sense of control in their life. Oftentimes you will have students in your classroom who don't have control in their life. They come from parents who are divorced, parents who are abusive, no food at home. All these things can make them feel like the world is against them. And that makes them defensive. It makes them defiant because they are acting out to protect themselves. But if you start giving them choices, you're on their side all of a sudden. And they can feel a sense of control for once in their life. Even though you're really the one in control because you're the one that's coming up with the choices. So it's a simple thing, but it is one of the best things you can do for your students. Now moving on, we're going to talk about some instructional practices to help build a successful classroom that will help all of your students. Classroom honor rolls. This is one of the ones that I really like that they suggested because it's going to reinforce both good behavioral choices, but it also reinforces those things that they need to start thinking about as the important things, like completing their work, getting their tasks done, starting to build that accuracy. So they suggest starting at around 85%. However, I would say think about your classroom first. 85% may not be a good goal for all students or all classrooms because whenever you're coming up with a goal, especially for something like a behavior management, remember the SMART goal system. It needs to be strategic, measurable, attainable. And that's the main part, is that attainable. Because 85% may not be attainable for a classroom. It might be attainable for the classroom next door, but for yours, it may not be. And you need to remember that when you are helping design these things. And above all, make sure it's public and make sure that it reinforces that they did good behavioral choices to get that honor. Because then the other students are going to start looking at each other and go, what kind of behaviors is that student doing that I'm not that might get me that praise? Students like praise. They really do. They may not seem like it, but that makes them feel important, and that's a good thing because it's a really good reinforcer. Next up, we have the red and green game. Now, this is one where you have a lot of problem behaviors that are class-wide. You can set up a system where you give them a cue, and you begin tracking behaviors for a set time period. If you see them engaging in a good, appropriate behavior, you give them a green card, and you mark down that they've gotten that point. However, if they're doing an inappropriate behavior or an inappropriate choice, holding up a red card and counting that that's a red point. And if at the end of the time they have more green than red points, they get a class reward. It's great to use if you have, say, a free time during the day where the free time they earn is based on the difference between those red and green points. So, again, it really, really reinforces behavior because now they see my choices are going to get me better rewards. So I'm going to start wanting to do better so I can get those better rewards. Now, turnaround points are something that I thought was a brilliant thing to have because one of the biggest problems you can have when working with students, especially with problem behaviors, is once they hit that point where, oh, I've blown it now. I've misbehaved. I might as well keep going because I can't earn my reward today. There's no point in changing. If you have this turnaround point, though, all of a sudden they can still earn their reward because they can turn their behavior around. And again, it encourages those choices because they can choose to turn around their behavior. They can choose to do better, and thus helps them start making those better choices. Now, above all, out of all three of these though, you need to make sure you make your expectations clear, especially with parents and the students. Because if the parents don't know what constitutes a successful day, and a student comes home with it saying that they were not successful, the student might get punished. Even though the reason they might not have been successful that day was just that they were struggling that day with an assignment and weren't able to complete it. All of a sudden now all that effort is being punished, and they're going to not want to do it later because they don't want to get punished. Punishment is not something kids like. Now, lastly, I want you to think of these two quotes that are really important to remember when going into the classroom. First, don't wait till students act out before engaging in behavior management. Because if you can prevent the behaviors from coming up in the first place, you don't have to worry about them. Number two, you're trying to prepare students for later success in life. That means you're providing them social skills and behavioral skills to help them be successful, and that is our goal as teachers, to prepare our students to be successful in life. Thank you for watching this short webinar, and I hope that it was helpful and informational, and that you might want to check out this text because it is a very good text for learning skills and strategies for dealing with those problem behaviors.